Welcome to our 30th Annual School Challenge. I'm John Grimsley, your 2022 NAIOP Georgia President, and I'm excited to welcome each and every one of you to this award-winning program this morning. I'd like to thank our sponsors. Without their support, we could not put on great programs like the School Challenge every year. Our headline sponsor is Majestic Realty Company. A special thank you to our premier sponsors, Randall Paulson Architects and the Trammell Crow Company. Our gold sponsor, Altus Group. Our scholarship sponsor, Bridge Investment Group. Our breakfast sponsor, Dominium Development and Acquisitions. And a special thank you to Resource Branding for putting together the resume books together for us, and to the CoStar Group for providing invaluable information to the students each year as they work on their project. Now to some NAIOP business before we get started. Our next event will be our May breakfast meeting. Stay tuned for more details. Registration will open next week, and we look forward to seeing you also next Thursday night for NAIOP night at the St. Regis Hotel. It'll be a great event. Now, some important information regarding educational credits for those who are getting credits today. If you're getting those, you should have signed in already outside with Heidi at the registration table, and you also must sign out at the end of the event. Now on to the School Challenge. I'd like to introduce our Vice President of Education, Greg Bowler, with Bridge Logistic Properties, where he will take over. Thank you.
Good morning. Did everybody have their coffee? All right, welcome back to the in-person School Challenge. It takes a lot of volunteers to make this program work, and we had a fantastic committee this year. Thank you to our 2022 NAIOP Georgia President, John Grimsley, Project Selection Case Study, David Haddow, Resume Books by Jay Robbins, School Liaison, Debbie Koenig, and thank you to my committee members, Caroline Cole Fisher and Matt Connors. And finally, our NAIOP Future Leaders Education and Special Event Committees are handling logistics today. Now, I'd like to introduce the judges. Ansley Nixon, Senior Vice President of Acquisitions for Jamestown. John Robbins, Senior Managing Director for Granite Properties. Bianca Taborn, Managing Director for Stockbridge. We appreciate you guys sacrificing your time. And our coaches for Emory are Andrew Roberts, Kelly Kirkendall, and Jade Alzine. For Georgia State, this is Devin Barnwell and Douglas McCrae. For Georgia Tech, Tyler Cooksey and Brian Howell. And for University of Georgia, Alex Heel and Ryan Reethoff. This event is critical to happening only because of these individuals, the professors of each school. For Emory, Roy Black. For Georgia State, Lynn McKee. For Georgia Tech, Barry Branch. And for University of Georgia, Rich Martin. We also have a large group of NAIOP members that serve as resources for the students during their 10 weeks of working on the case study. There are too many to name here, but please accept our gratitude for your time with the students. So, how do you find a good case study? You look at all the possibilities and timely projects that will benefit the students? How do you write a case study that will challenge the students, teams, and be relevant to our NAIOP members? You find David Haddow. He has the unique perspective of having been in the industry for many years, is a NAIOP member, and has been a professor. This was only considering that David was not going to be here, but he is here, thankfully. So David, if you could come on up and read this case study that you have helped us craft. More so you did, but thank you.
Thank you. How you doing? I'm good. Hi there. I have had the pleasure of being involved with this for a long time, and if you haven't attended one of these events before, I think you're in for a real treat. Just the enthusiasm that the students exhibit is fun, but it's a great learning opportunity, obviously a great networking opportunity for the students to meet professionals in our industry. Every year, the committee tries to come up, as Greg said, with something topical that would be of educational value to the students and the audience. The central topic of this year's case, and I'm not going to read it to you, is remote work and the impact that that may or may not have long-term on the office market. Our protagonist this year in the case is a female developer by the name of Karen Sunday, and she's an office developer who has been reading the paper and taken note of various kind of watershed events surrounding remote work and recognizing that the change will create opportunity. The two particular ones that are cited in the case are in 2020, Pinterest, the internet-based company in San Francisco who was to anchor an office tower downtown, ended up paying the landlord $89.5 million to terminate their lease before taking occupancy because their business model, their operational and organizational structure shifted so much during COVID that they recognized it was better to take that hit and once again work remotely than to move into that building. More recently, and I think even more dramatically, and I call this a metaphor for our times, Allstate Insurance Company, which has a corporate campus in Northbrook, Illinois, outside of Chicago, that they've had since the 60s, 232 acres, improved with almost 2 million square feet of office buildings. During COVID, that facility essentially went dark as everybody worked remotely. And I guess the top brass at Allstate started thinking, when this is over, maybe we ought to rethink how we go about doing things. Well, in the meantime, a developer out of Nevada put the property under contract with the intent to redevelop it as a logistics center. In other words, the plan being to tear down the 2 million square feet of office buildings to build a 3.2 million square foot industrial park. Purchase price, reportedly, is $1 million an acre. Now, if that isn't a telling story, and I don't know if that deal is closed yet, that's something that was working in the late fall, but those are the kind of things that Karen Sunday paid attention to. And she's asking the question, how real is this remote work and what implications does it have from an investment and development standpoint? I gave a talk the other day, and I've been asked a number of times about this phenomenon. And the way I look at it is the technology has existed for a long time for people to work remotely, and some people have dabbled in it for a long time. What COVID did was force people to have direct experience with it. And I equate it to, personally, during the Olympics in '96, our company, which had always been a button-down, wear a suit and tie to work every day, we went casual for a couple of weeks during the Olympics. Well, once we got a taste of it, we never went back. I mean, it was casual from that point on. And I really think what's happening right now is akin to that. Gallup did a survey of people who work at least partly remotely and asked them what they would like to do moving forward. Only 9% said they were interested in going back to the office full-time. So enough background. Their charge specifically, what you're going to hear about this morning, is do you go out and find a building that you can repurpose for another use? Do you go buy a building, hopefully at a discount, that maybe you modify, amenitize, create an environment that makes it more conducive or attractive to office users? Or do you look for redevelopment opportunities? They've been told they have $50 million, 50, of equity to work with, and their task is to advise Karen Sunday on how to deploy that capital on an actual property or properties here in Atlanta. So that's what you're going to hear about this morning. Unfortunately for me, well, not unfortunately, this is my wedding anniversary, 43 today, and I'm leaving for the beach in a few minutes, so I'm going to miss the presentation, but I'm glad I was here this morning. Thank you, and enjoy it.
Thank you, David. For those who have never attended this event, I'm going to take a minute to explain this process. Our committee begins discussing topics in November and decides on the best case study for the students. Each university assembles a team. In January, the students were given the case study at our School Challenge kickoff event, where they are also given a chance to meet with their coaches. They had 10 weeks to work on the written portion. All written presentations were turned in late March and immediately distributed to the judges. The written analysis has been graded separately by the judges, and this portion represents 60% of the overall score. Each team will give their oral presentations today for another 40% of the overall score. The team with the highest combined score will win a scholarship and will get to display the NAIOP School Challenge trophy for the next year. Today's agenda. Each school will have 15 minutes to present their case. They will be given a warning at 5 and 2 minutes. I will be keeping time. Following each team's presentation, there will be a 5-minute question and answer period for the judges. 5 minutes. One of the key benefits for the students today is the exposure they will receive by presenting in front of you, the real estate community. NAIOP has prepared a resume book for your reference, which you may pick up as you leave. After the schools present and before the winner is announced, we will have panel discussions moderated by Cole Fisher and Matt Connors, reflecting on the case in a real-world scenario. The students have drawn numbers, and here's the order of the presentation. Drum roll, please. I'll do it myself. Georgia State University. Passing on. Okay. If all the other teams will leave the room now. Appreciate it. No spies. While the first team is setting up, let's give away some prizes. Okay. Okay. Scratch that. We're just going to hang around. You'll be having to get up pretty
Test,
quickly.
test.
It's all right. All righty. Georgia State, you guys ready? Come on up.
Good morning. Thank you for your time, and thank you to NAIOP for the opportunity. I'm Angie Witz, and we are excited to share our project. My fellow presenters are Jack McIntyre, Tanner McIntyre, and Amanda Matthews. Our other members and alternates are Marissa Barkley, Fazil Hassan, and Mike Adams. Our project lands us in Peachtree Corners and the redevelopment of 2 suburban offices. As most groups do, we dug in and dove for sites. 5515 Spalding Drive and 5550 Triangle Parkway were in that round of early discovery. However, we quickly realized we did not know why. Why Peachtree Corners? Why these 2 parcels, and what's their highest use? We essentially started over. We set aside all our findings and studied data. We committed to data-driven decisions that would yield a sound investment strategy, a strategy that could be repeated elsewhere. As for the future of office, our research produced 2 prevailing trends. 1, hybrid is likely permanent, and 2, employees are demanding flexibility. With these statistics, it is difficult to imagine the office model returning to what we all remember. Tenant footprints will shrink and demands will change. Companies will seek the highest office quality. And we've all heard it, the flight to quality. We can scour all real estate publications and support this premise. The bottom line stands. Most companies appear to want an office environment, but the way they use it will change. The highest quality and amenitized spaces will be the winners, and older office products will lose tenants. Keeping the backdrop with flight to quality and remaining location agnostic, we took the following steps. We knew sourcing older product was imperative, as simply renovating would not elevate them to the quality tenants will demand. We next vetted various repurpose and redevelopment options and simply followed each idea until it failed. Our data revealed the primary opportunity was the redevelopment of suburban office to multifamily. From this point, we then narrowed the Atlanta market to 4 submarkets. Using the same procedure, we vetted each location idea until it failed. From market data alone, we landed in Peachtree Corners. With this process, we absolutely believe we nailed the investment strategy. Source Class B or C low-rise offices with an occupancy of less than 25%, a cap rate spread from office to multi of at least 3%, and in an area of employment growth. A sound investment strategy that can be repeated elsewhere.
Thank you, Angie. The Peachtree Corners Market is an exciting and growing community. It's located in the fastest growing county in the state of Georgia, Gwinnett County. We landed on 2 locations within Peachtree Corners. Our first site will be the site of Phase 1, and that's 5515 Spalding Drive. Phase 2 will encompass 5550 Triangle Parkway. These 2 parcels are located less than a mile from the Forum Shopping Center, which is currently being redeveloped by North American Properties, as well as the Peachtree Corners Town Center development, which was completed in 2019. Our properties are also directly across Peachtree Parkway from Technology Park, which is a major focus of redevelopment for the city of Peachtree Corners, and are less than half a mile from Curiosity Labs, which is a small business tech incubator located on a 5G-enabled campus. Peachtree Corners' push for growth in the technology sector, as well as workforce housing intended to house the technology workers that come with that area industry growth, is outlined in its comprehensive plan, and our properties are perfectly located for that development. Covering 17 square miles, Peachtree Corners is home to more than 42,000 residents and boasts a median annual income that is 20% higher than that of the state of Georgia and 4% higher than the Atlanta MSA. Over 2,300 businesses have a presence in Peachtree Corners, but only 10% of employed residents both live and work within city limits. The city's push for redevelopment is in hopes of changing this statistic. In looking at our financial investment criteria, we quickly realized that Peachtree Corners met our two submarket-specific criteria, being a suburban office market with strong employment growth and capturing a cap rate spread between office and multifamily of 3%. When we ran our demand model, we quickly realized that there was significant demand and it far outweighed supply, even with several projects in the pipeline. With this in mind, we needed to find a property that fit our two site-specific criteria, a Class B or C low-rise office property with less than 25% vacancy. We landed on two properties on the corner of Peachtree Parkway and Spalding Drive. Phase 1 of our project will be completed on 5515 Spalding Drive, which is currently being vacated by owner-occupier Hapag Lloyd. And phase 2 of our project will be on 5550 Triangle Parkway, which, while it's currently sitting at 76% occupied, will meet our vacancy requirements by the time we're ready for phase 2. Phase 1 of our project will include demolishing 5515 Spalding Drive and redeveloping a mixed-use facility that will include 11,000 square feet of ground floor retail, 12,000 square feet of short-term leased flexible office space, 296 residential units, and a 450-space parking garage. We modeled phase 2 with two options depending on the state of the market when we complete phase 1. Our first option was to sell the building to Intuitive Surgical, who is currently expanding their campus across the road from our property. And the second option would be to demolish and redevelopment in line with phase 1. As you can see, our property will include wrapped parking, as well as ground floor retail with visibility from both Peachtree Parkway and Spalding Drive. We believe that the ground floor retail visibility is really important in selling this retail, and our proposed retail tenants will include a neighborhood grocery, such as a Savvy Provisions, as well as an urgent care, as both of those uses are needed on the southbound side of Peachtree Parkway. Our construction timeline lays out 6 months of pre-development beginning June 1st, with construction completion in February 2025 and full lease-up and stabilization by September 2025. Our hold period will be for 7 years from January 2023 through December 2029.
Thank you, Amanda. Looking at 5550, it was developed in 1986 on approximately 4 acres. It's 3 stories tall, comprising 58,950 square feet, and there are 206 surface parking spaces, so there's plenty of land. It's located at the intersection of 141 and Peachtree Parkway and is 6 miles from I-285. The Forum and Peachtree Corners Town Center are less than a mile away from the property, and the Corners Connector Trail system is also walking distance, so great access in terms of hubs and local amenities. We're taking down this property with 100% equity to ensure maximum control and flexibility. Here you can see the trail system showing the interconnectivity with the subject property highlighted in red. The Forum is located in the northeast. Wesleyan School and Norcross High School are across Peachtree Parkway, as is Peachtree Parkway Plaza, which provides access to neighborhood retail, and Technology Park is to the south. Quick note on retail, we are adding 11,000 square feet at 5515, but the submarket is at 4% vacancy, and we underwrote our rents below that to ensure occupancy. It's more so an amenity than a profit center for the multifamily and office component. Our strategy for 5550 involves holding the asset for 3 years while benefiting from cash roll and minimal rent roll in the first 2 years. And phase 2 would involve marketing the property to publicly traded Intuitive Surgical. They're planning a $500 million expansion in Triangle Parkway, which will include a 6-building, 750,000 square foot campus. Or, depending on market conditions at the time, we will develop multifamily similar to 5515. Taking a further look at Intuitive's impact on the local economy, they're displacing 275,000 square foot of tenancy, so there may be some room to capture that if we were to proceed with office. They're hiring 1,200 workers with an average salary of $130,000. And they're going to have visiting doctors and surgeons coming to the site, which is going to generate further demand and revenue in Peachtree Corners. So with Intuitive's growth and all the other growth in Peachtree Corners, we feel we are in a prime location to meet the market, whatever the demand might be.
Thank you, Tanner. Big button. Big button. Still not working.
Please advance the slide.
Oop.
Red button.
Awesome. So as you guys can see, the multifamily market in Peachtree Corners is very healthy as a whole. We're currently sitting at 95% occupancy and have been above 93% since 2017. So rents in the market as well remain strong. They have effectively doubled since 2010, and last year grew at over 12%. For the investment sales market for comparable properties, so Class A, top of the market, suburban properties in the Northern Gwinnett corridor have been trading at around 4% cap rates recently and have also been trending lower depending on the asset. So when we compared, when we put together a comp set for our phase 1 deal, we want to take into account all of the top of the market properties in Peachtree Corners and Norcross, as well as any projects coming down the development pipeline that might compete with us during lease up. So a major selling point for this deal is the fact that there's been only 2 Class A multifamily properties delivered in Peachtree Corners since 1997, which is the Cortland Peachtree Corners, as well as the Spoke. With that being said, our biggest competition, we feel, will be Broadstone Peachtree Corners, which is actually under development and to deliver in 2024. A good thing about that, our advantage there lies in the fact that we are farther up Peachtree Corners, Peachtree Parkway from the Broadstone with more direct access to grocery-anchored retail and more walkable retail across the street. So for our underwriting and analysis, once again, we wanted to be conservative. We underwrote our rents, expenses, and operating margins to that of our comp set, while keeping in mind a top-of-the-market amenity package. For our financing, we believe our terms are priced competitively via our broker, Newmark Knight Frank. We will take a little bit of recourse on the construction loan to gain a more advantageous 225-point basis spread over SOFR, but upon stabilization of our phase 1, we will return over $12 million of equity to investors in year 3. Once again, with our retail rents, as Tanner mentioned, we are net about $6 below the forum, so we feel like we are priced competitively there. And then as well, for our phase 2 site, that's an all-equity purchase for our covered land play. So digging more into our financial modeling, we've laid out all of our assumptions on the left for our phase 2 development. If we are to bring that into a multifamily deal, we would commence construction at the end of year 3, trending up all of our phase 1 assumptions by 3% annually. And then we would exit at the end of year 7, which is the end of our total hold period. And that'd be a 219-unit Class A property. And then on the right, our phase 1 multifamily, we expect to yield about $5 million in NOI for our pro forma a year. So diving more into our development, we all in for our phase 1 multifamily, inclusive of land costs, for about $270,000 a unit. That equates to a little over $240 a net rentable foot for hard costs, about $49 a net rentable foot for soft costs, and for our ground floor retail and office portion, That's about $425 a square foot. And then once again, if we are to redevelop phase 2 into multifamily, we believe that's going to be a $55 million project for those 219 units. And then once again for our returns. So on our conservative base cases where we take the 5550 site and flip it to intuitive for a modest profit in year 3, we yield a 17% IRR, about an 8.5% cash on cash return, a 1.7 equity multiple. And if we are to take that site, we believe that multifamily meets the demand for phase 2, and we develop that. All in, we'd make over $36 million in profit, closer to a 20% IRR, and almost a 2 on the equity multiple. That being said, we feel like this property, or this project really sells itself in the phase 1 returns alone. So the phase 1 multifamily returns will yield us by itself over an 18% IRR and over a 1.8 equity multiple. And keeping in mind, when we're underwriting all this, we're underwriting to a conservative 5% exit cap based on projecting the market out a few years.
Quick conclusion. We feel confident we landed in the right investment location with a compelling strategy. Our thesis offers opportunity, flexibility, and strong returns. And just last week, we were elated to see this Peachtree Corners headline. Brand Properties announced a proposed mixed-use development, and would you like to guess where that is? Directly across the street from our subject site. What more validation could we get for our findings? We think you'll agree. Thank you very much for listening.
Hi, excellent job, team. So, question regarding the current zoning of the property. What is it currently zoned for, and what is the likelihood of your, if it needs to be rezoned, of that being approved and the timeline? I think you guys mentioned there has not been a brand new multifamily development within that Peachtree Corner submarket for some time, and just wondering if that may be because the city is against multifamily.
Yeah, so the property is currently zoned for office. However, we do feel strongly that we'll be able to get the multifamily rezoning pretty quickly. Peachtree Corners is really pushing for new multifamily. As Jack mentioned, they haven't had any new properties developed since 1997. We also have seen the rezoning happen with Brand Properties, as well as another development that's happening about a mile away. So we do believe that we'll be able to get that rezoning pretty quickly.
Any idea how long that might take, and did you guys factor that into your underwriting?
We added 6 months of pre-development, which would include the rezoning from June 1st before land close on January 1st.
Yeah, great job, y'all, on the overall presentation. I thought you really focused a lot on the multifamily, and I think that all makes sense. Honestly, from my standpoint, both in the written and on this, it looked like the office was a little bit of a afterthought or second, and how critical is that to do you have to buy both at the same time? It just wasn't ever clear as to why you were targeting that as the phase 2.
Yes, so we did purchase the 2 properties, A, to have control of the second parcel, B, our first property does reach over into that second parcel, but also in order to get access off of Peachtree Parkway, we would have to have access for both parcels. So it's gonna be easier if we just have that tied up at once. We also increased our parking ratio for phase 1 in order to help us park whatever we end up doing for phase 2.
Thank you.
So as I recall from the written report, your target density is about 55 units per acre. The Broadstone deal, so Alliance, I think, is at 36 units per acre, including some townhomes. Did y'all explore scenarios at a lower density?
We did. Jack can kind of talk through that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely did, but the site itself is 9 acres. And just based on the returns and the cost in today's environment, we felt there's a pretty compelling case to do a mixed-use development, 50 plus units per acre, and we felt we could sell that to the city, especially being right, on that intersection with that frontage. It made more sense. The two sites that were in play were, like, once again, we're just constrained by it being only 9 acres.
Could you tell me how average mortgage rates within Peachtree Corners compares to your underwritten monthly rents?
So currently in Peachtree Corners, monthly rents average about $930. Monthly mortgage payments average about $1,200 a month. Our rents that we underwrote were about $1,300 a month. So in line with mortgage payments, however, and other rent comps for the new developments in the property. However, the rents in Peachtree Corners are so low because, again, the product in Peachtree Corners is so old, so dated, and not up to the standard.
Yeah, the rents in Peachtree Corners from the market analysis are actually $1,500 a month. We underwrote to $2,000. All of our comparable properties are at that number, and on a per square foot and on a chunk, rent per unit basis, we were at our comp set, and those properties all over 95% occupied.
Thank you all.
No further questions.
Thank you.
Great job.
Okay. What is this? Okay. Sorry about that. Hello? I'll use this one. Hello? Cool. Appreciate it. Gang's on? Yeah.
Just give me a minute to get this timer started, okay? Nope, we're pretty much going. Yes, thank you. Take that with you. And just pay attention during the next school break. Thank you. You may begin.
All right, so good morning, everybody. Thank you all for being here and supporting us and all the other students in this case competition. Thank you to the judges for putting this competition on and making it run so smoothly. My name is Chase Wolf, and I'm joined here by Luke Raven and Reed Smith. Oops.
That was not working?
No. Sorry, here we have a
Give us
technical
minute.
glitch.
That's okay, it's happened before. We're gonna stop your time. There you go.
There we go.
All right.
And I'd also like to shout out to Bethany Chapman and Eric Roddy, who are unable to make it today. We're all second-year MBAs at the University of Georgia, and together we make up Dog Development. So to kind of walk you through what we're going to be talking about today, we're first going to address the issue at hand and touch on our proposed solution, then dive into our market analysis, the property that we ultimately selected, and our plans and details around that property. We'll address several assumptions that we made that really kind of drive our investment analysis, and then address some risk and mitigating factors with the selected property. So as most of us in this room, if not all, are familiar with, Karen Sunday is a veteran in the Atlanta office market and recognizes that the fundamentals of this market are changing and are a little bit uncertain. So it's our job to study this market, provide a recommendation for how Karen can deploy her capital, and really capitalize on a commercial asset in these uncertain times. Needless to say, we propose the redevelopment of 34 Peachtree into a multifamily asset, which is going to generate roughly a 13% unlevered IRR with a 22% levered IRR and a 101 basis point development spread. So diving into our market analysis, there's three key metrics that we kind of want to highlight here, and we're taking a holistic approach at the Atlanta region. If we look at vacancy rates, we can see that for the office market, vacancy rates have really started to rise, even pre-pandemic level, hovering around 14%, and they're going to kind of stagnate or projected to stagnate thereafter. If we look at the multifamily asset market, we can see that vacancy rates have started to decline, and they're projected to rise a little bit thereafter, but they've been trending in the right direction or in a favorable direction. I think it's worth noting that Atlanta region is the third fastest growing metropolitan area in the United States. And according to JLL's Why Atlanta 2021 report, Atlanta is projected to increase by 2.4 million over the next 30 years. If we look at annual rent growth, we can see that the multifamily market over the past 2 years or so, we saw a huge spike. And then if we kind of touch on cap rates real quick, we can see that in the office market, they've stagnated, decreased a little bit. But in the multifamily market, we can see that the cap rates have decreased a lot over the past 6 or 7 years, which indicates that there's a lot less risk associated with this asset type. So while the area has emerged to be more of an office cluster in the downtown submarket, featuring a collection of small to mid-sized tech companies, new developments that have started over the last 2 years are going to continue to put pressure on the office market. And then when we consider the effects of the pandemic and the work from home trends, it's an unfavorable outlook ahead. Lastly, our research further indicates that downtown Atlanta multifamily market is still emerging and revitalizing as many well-known developers are looking to restructure the historic core. This area is brimming with young professionals and government employers and boasts a really strong public transit access across Metro Atlanta. So taking all this into consideration, it's led us to our proposal of taking an office asset, 34 Peachtree, redeveloping into multifamily use, and Luke's going to go into a little bit more details about our actual plan with this building.
Okay, awesome. So thank you, Chase. A lot of Chase's work on the market analysis really helped to form our investment thesis. And the property that we've identified is 34 Peachtree Street. So just to sort of orient us, see if I can get this laser pointer to work. So this is Peachtree right here, and the building itself is in red, obviously. A couple of things, you can see the Georgia Pacific building. Woodruff Park is right across the street from our building. And then I want to touch on this building down here. So 34 Peachtree has no parking controlled at the asset level, but this end of the building right across the street with sort of the green rooftop, that's a 7-story parking deck that we plan to partner with, and that's our solve for the parking. And Reed will talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But the building itself is a 31 square foot office building as it sits today, roughly 300,000 square feet of rentable space, and the average floor size is about 11,000 square feet. So this is sort of a perfect storm for us and really led us to want to reposition it into multifamily. And so here's kind of some facts about what we want to do. So 300,000 square feet, again, that we will reposition it in 230,000 square feet of multifamily. Really the idea here is taking an older, sort of dated Class B office building and repositioning it into a Class A luxury multifamily building. In addition to that, we plan to rename the property from 34 Peachtree to 34 Peachtree Place. And really this is all sort of in line with a lot of what we've seen in Atlanta, this flight to quality. This is a much higher quality asset, and we think this is the best and highest use of the asset. Again, as Chase mentioned, 101 basis point development spread and a 22% IRR on our proposed building. So continuing to move along, we talked about the building, let's talk about the location here for a minute. Downtown Atlanta is having a revitalization. A couple years ago, a proposition like this wouldn't have been very favorable, but now it makes a lot of sense. The area itself is catching a lot of spillover demand from Midtown and the likes, and multifamily here is really growing. In addition, there's a lot of momentum with the Centennial Yards development, as well as other things like State Farm Arena and Mercedes-Benz Stadium. These are really key Atlanta attractions that tenants will be excited about and will drive momentum. So talking about unit mix here, 34 Peachtree Place will feature 80 studio units with a rent of $18.25 per month, 75 one-bedroom, one-bath units with a rent of $21.50 per month, and 110 two-bedroom, two-bath units for a rental rate of $3,100 per month. So these are not numbers that we pulled out of thin air. We've got a couple of rental comps we want to talk through really quick. The first one is Generation Atlanta, which you guys can see here. So Generation Atlanta is similar in nature to ours in that this is a luxury urban living development in downtown Atlanta. These rents, as you can see, are actually a little bit higher than ours, which is really positive, and we think this is a great comp. The second one I want to highlight is Altitude Apartments. Altitude Apartments may sound somewhat familiar. This one we picked on purpose as well. This was formerly The Office, and as the office name suggests, it was formerly office space that was flipped to multifamily in about 2017. These rental rates are slightly lower, but again, this development was done in 2017, and it's a slightly lower quality asset than ours, so we feel comfortable with commanding the higher rental rates that we projected. And then continuing to move forward, these next couple of slides, I'll kind of go at a quicker pace. We'll talk about design, specs, plans, all that kind of stuff. And on this slide, I'm going to start at the top and work my way down. So the roof in the 31st floor, this will feature a rooftop pool and terrace for tenant-only access. All of your HVAC needs will be serviced up there. Mechanical, electrical, all these kind of functional things that are needed for a building will all be done up there as well. Moving to floor 27 through 30, the unit mix here will be 2 studios, 1 bedroom, 1 bath, and 3 to 4 2-bedroom, 2 baths. The rationale here is that when you're this high up, there's some amazing views. We hope to capitalize on that and get a little bit more rent out of these 2-bedroom, 2-bath sort of premium units. And then floors 2 through 26, this will be the vast majority of living space. This will all feature 3 studios, 3 1-bedroom, 1 bath, and 4 2-bedroom, 2 bath. And then finally, the lobby, the first floor, street entrances, elevators, a leasing office, fitness center, Amazon lockers, all of these kind of things that you would really expect with a luxury urban development. And then, so here is just sort of a rough floor plan layout that we've done. 34 Peachtree Place is a center core building, so the elevator shaft is in the middle of the building. Gives really easy access to all of the units. And again, this is sort of a mock-up of floors 2 through 27, where most of the tenants will reside. And so go into a couple renderings now. This is a studio unit. As you can see, there's really clear sort of set spaces for bedroom, bathroom, and living room. One of the things we want to highlight is this is a 600 square foot unit, but because of the nature of the layout, it feels like a lot more space. We'll have high-end amenities, all sorts of things in here to make it really that luxury type of feel that we're going for. The second one is a 1-bedroom, 1-bath unit model. At 800 square feet, this is slightly larger, and the main thing to highlight here is the kitchen. So you can see, my laser pointer will work, the kitchen island. This is a big feature for us in this unit. It really helps tie the space together and gives that common area a more homey sort of feel. And then finally, our 2-bedroom, 2-bath unit at about 1,200 square feet. This is the largest unit where you will walk in the front door into your kitchen and living room space, 1 bedroom and 1 bathroom on your left, 1 bedroom and 1 bathroom on your right. And this is our highest rental rate unit, and we really think because, once again, the high-end amenities, the high-end appliances, all these things, we feel comfortable with the rents that we think we can achieve here. So I will stop and let Reed go through some of the financials.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Luke. So just getting a little bit into our investment timeline, 35-month investment timeline, assuming we acquire the building this month, 12-month construction period, and I know we're up against time a little bit, so I'll move quickly. Stabilization occurs in month 23 of the asset, but we just really want to highlight kind of speed to market with this business plan. Second thing, just a little highlight of the sources and uses, which can be found in our report. So our total cost basis for this project was about $83.3 million. So if you see, I do want to point out the hard costs is obviously one of our biggest drivers of cost for this project. with labor rates and materials is obviously going to be a big cost driver for this, but we're confident in the returns. Some of our operating and exit assumptions that we used. So revenue drivers, once we are finished with construction, we estimate approximately 20% of the units would be pre-leased. And the lease-up velocity after that would be 24 units a month. Stabilized occupancy, 95%, and annual rent growth at 3%. Like Chase highlighted, we're seeing good rent growth in the multifamily market, particularly in the downtown submarket. Expense drivers, annual operating expenses at $9,000 a unit annually, annual property taxes $3,000 a unit, and annual expense growth at 2%. Asset disposition, we estimated a 4.25 exit cap rate. We thought that was actually conservative, and a building that's this nice quality could command a 4% cap rate, but just to be conservative in our underwriting, we wanted to go with 4.25. So just to quickly go over the returns, I did miss this, but we would do a 90-10 split with the equity. And so you can see the equity partners return 1.64 equity multiple with a 19.15% IRR. And the GPU's return would be the 2.85 equity multiple and 44.81% IRR. From a property standpoint, unlevered about 13% return and levered 22% IRR. So our yield on cost 5.26 over our conservative exit cap, with the development spread being about 101 basis points. Quickly to go over just some of the risks. Luke mentioned no parking controlled at the asset level, but we can partner with that parking deck across the street, and there are also multiple parking decks and lots in the downtown area. Rising construction costs. We felt like our budget for construction was conservative, and we're really excited about the recent projected rent growth that I mentioned before. The loss factor in the square footage is obviously a little bit of a risk, but with our purchase price being low for the asset in its current state, we felt like that was a mitigant. Rising interest rates and transition away from LIBOR complicates financing. We essentially, in talking to some industry professionals, had our rate fixed at 3.6, and it's a SOFR-based rate. And then there is a mixed history of this asset among Atlanta commercial real estate investors, but we're confident that this office to multifamily redevelopment is the highest and best use for this asset. So with that being said, we are happy to take some questions.
What other high-rise comparable projects are you aware of without on-site parking? And did you look at the cost of potentially obtain a parking contract for your renters?
That's a great question. I'm not familiar. Are you guys familiar with anything that doesn't have site parking on it? Yeah, not a higher than within a metro area, but I think the altitude did have something where they had to do kind of a unique parking venture or something with how the previous asset was. But yeah, obviously that is a risk with our project.
Is this on? Yeah, we felt pretty confident that the parking deck directly across the street is upwards of 700 spots, and that equates to 2.1 spots per unit. And in an urban building, we feel pretty comfortable that's sufficient parking.
But are you asking your renters to pay for that, or are you going to get a contract for those spaces?
So we were essentially asking the renters to we would secure an agreement, and then the renters would pay the parking company, the company that owns that deck.
And did you guys include that in your underwriting, the cost of the contract versus the rent collected?
No, we did not. I don't believe so.
Can you Can you walk us through the steps of rezoning this building and what kind of additional code requirements would be necessary to go from commercial to residential use?
You just keep asking them a question.
I know.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about this a little bit. The nature of the cost, it's a little bit hard for us to say, but we have a $5 million soft cost contingency in our budget that we plan to use for things of that nature.
And did you guys factor the rezoning time into your underwriting? It looks like construction is beginning day one.
Yeah, we felt like, we did not, but we felt like we could have that building rezoned prior to acquisition. That would be kind of a condition of acquisition.
Ansley stole my questions. I've walked the property. I think when I first read it and saw that was what you were targeting, I thought it was a great thesis. My biggest concern is on the parking side and the rezoning and code issues as it relates to it. But yeah.
I mean, in terms of the property being, we really, when we were evaluating the downtown submarket, we loved the energy downtown with developments like Centennial Yards, like Luke mentioned. But it was also difficult to find buildings that were not Georgia State or things like that. And so, seeing a building like this that had been recently purchased, I think December 2020, and it was still vacant, largely vacant, was a real opportunity for us. So, we were really excited when we found this asset, and we think there's a good chance that this business plan could work.
I also want to touch on a little bit to the rezoning question. So like he mentioned, we think the acquisition would be contingent on that. But we also think, given the history of the building itself and its failures over the time being, 40 years or so plus, we think it would probably be an easier pitch to the city to say this is the best use for it, and this is what's going to generate some good economic impact to the city. So.
And then how did you guys determine the 2% annual growth on your operating expenses? It feels a little low, especially in the current interest rate environment.
I think that was just sort of a general underwriting standard that we had seen in some other models that we were looking at. But yeah, I think we did run a little sensitivity analysis, I believe, and the deal is so profitable if you're raising your annual expense growth upwards to 3% or even higher. But yeah, that is definitely a risk in all development opportunities in this current market. All right.
Thank you.
Phone's right there. Thank you so much.
All right, Georgia Tech.
I guess we'll see how fast it goes.
All right, here we go. We got 2 gift cards, one to Little Alley's, which is pretty nice, and another to Goldberg's. So let's do Little Alley's. If anyone can tell me the original name of Atlanta, you get that gift card. Ansley. The original name for Atlanta, Terminus. There you go. Like, you guys are slacking. All right. All right.
The judge got the prize and got the winner.
Thank you.
Too bad.
Okay,
Thank
yes.
you. Thank you, Brad.
No problem.
We just need one.
You just get one? Okay.
Might I suggest that y'all move closer to the center a little bit? Thank you. That's good. Unless it's messing up your pattern. And if you'll wait until I tell you when to start. Sophie, thank you. Okay, you may begin. Sophie, you may begin.
Thank you. Hello all. Hello, Karen. Firstly, thank you all so much for joining us this morning. We are New Normal Realty, and we will be presenting our post-COVID investment recommendation. My name is Sophie Zhang, and I'm joined today by my associates Curtis King, Wyatt Nelson, Marshall Hodges, and Juan Tellez. Our teammate Bobby Shaw could not be here with us today. As per Ms. Sunday's request, we will first delve into the problem and our evaluation of the Atlanta market. We will then move into our proposed investment strategy. New Normal Realty was engaged by Karen Sunday, a seasoned office developer, to investigate potential trends in the Atlanta market and to identify a potential investment opportunity. Ms. Sunday has outlined 3 possible avenues for our recommendation: repurposing, repositioning, or redeveloping an existing office space. Ms. Sunday has allocated $50 million in equity for this project, and we, New Normal Realty, have decided upon an investment strategy we feel best optimizes Ms. Sunday's capital in the current economy. Again, as Ms. Sunday is a veteran office developer, we will start by evaluating the office market. So to identify trends in the market, we felt it was important to analyze the office market's past and present performance, as well as the post-COVID work model and the implications this has on the market as a whole. As I'm sure we're all aware, COVID drastically impacted the office market as workers began to work from home. Prior to COVID, the Atlanta market maintained vacancy levels at around 11 to 12%. However, the pandemic drove vacancies up and absorptions down, with vacancy levels peaking at around 14.5%. Today, even as workers return to some normalcy, vacancy levels maintain at around 14%, where they are forecasted to remain till 2026. So why is there so much uncertainty surrounding the Atlanta market's ability to fully recover to its pre-COVID levels? Well, the future of the office market is largely dependent on the future work model. Being forced to work from home, many workers realize benefits of their new lifestyle, including saved travel time, greater flexibility, etc. In fact, a survey from 2021 found that 98% of workers preferred some level of remote work in the future. And in response to that, 69% of US companies expressed plans to incorporate remote work in the future. So workers' preferences are being heard by companies, and companies are now realizing that they can reduce their real estate footprint. This great phenomenon is known as the Great Downsizing. So pictured here is the 95-acre suburban campus of Bayer. The company acquired the campus in 2018 for $65 billion, and now just 4 years later, they are selling the property due to reduced needs for physical space. This is also reflected in this cap rate survey, where as you can see here, the office market maintains high cap rates and low projected rent growth CAGR for 2022 to 2024, representing the uncertainty surrounding the office market. So thus, we feel that Ms. Sunday should pursue a less risky investment opportunity. Specifically, our team has identified the industrial market as a market in Atlanta with low risk, high growth, and high potential return, which my teammate Curtis will now explain further.
Sophie, thank you. I'm Curtis King, and I will discuss why industrials. We chose industrials based on 5 key indicators, in addition to comments and remarks made by commercial leasing agents and commercial brokers. These professionals indicated that industrial projects were being sold before construction was complete, and in some cases, even before tenants commitments from tenants. And they could not say the same regarding office projects. So let's begin with the first indicator, vacancy rate. As you can see from the chart, the vacancy rates have declined since the beginning of the pandemic. These vacancy rates for the Atlanta area previously were around 7%. However, due to the pandemic, due to actual industrial tenants renewing their lease and a surge of tenants looking for space, the industrial rate hit an all-time low for the Atlanta market of 3.4%. This is the first time in history the industrial rate has been 4% in the Atlanta area. So what happens when demand is high, supply is low? The price goes up. And in this instance, market rent, which we'll discuss on the next slide. The market rents for the industrial market has surged to a high of 13.3% year to date. On the other hand, the office market did not fare as well. And with the influx of office market supply about to hit the market and an abundance of additional office space that needs to be filled, we believe that the market rent growth of the office market is going to struggle. So let's take a look at the next indicator, the industrial market net absorption. As you can see from the chart, the net absorption rate for the industrial market in 2021 was off the charts. And with the actual influx, and if the current leasing trend holds up and the downward trend of the vacancy rates continue, and the influx of multinational tenants continue to come into the Atlanta area, we believe that the actual just strength of the absorption rates can mitigate any risk of oversupply. So let's look at the next indicator, the industrial cap rate. As you can see from the chart, the industrial cap rate has been on a downward trend. However, this downward trend is based on multinational companies coming in the area. As you can see, if we look at the sales and volumes chart, it's an increase. This is due to the low cap rates. In 2021, the sales value for Q3 was at its best. Over $3 billion of assets changed hands in the Larry area, which is another record. Now, why are these companies moving to this area? Well, Atlanta has one of the most talented job forces in the country. In addition, by 2050, there'll be additional 3 million residents in the area. This is based off the Atlanta Regional Commission's report. So with the increase in population growth and job growth, we believe industrial will increase in the near future. So now I'll pass it back to my colleague, Sophie Zhang.
All right, thank you so much, Curtis. So why have we decided to refocus our investment strategy on the industrial market? Pictured here is the 212-acre campus of Allstate that Ms. Karen Sunday mentioned in her initial statement. So the company is now selling their property due to unjustifiable maintenance costs. And recently, a private investment firm, Dermody, expressed plans to acquire the property and convert it into an industrial logistics campus. So as you can see here, this shift from office to industrial is being echoed across the real estate industry. Finally, to conclude our market evaluation section, I would like to quote Mr. David Hadow, who said, "The industrial market grew in terms of occupancy by 30 million square feet. The office market shrank by almost 3 million square feet. This dichotomy says it all." Now, my associate Wyatt will go further into our property selection.
Thank you, Sophie. My name is Wyatt Nelson, and I'll dive further into our property selection. Our group, based on the trends and outlooks of the Atlanta metro area markets, our group decided to pursue industrial. So our group selected property is the former corporate office headquarters of Cisco, located at 5030 Sugarloaf Parkway. Our property includes a prime location located directly adjacent to the Highway 316 and Sugarloaf Parkway Loop, owned by the Georgia Department of Transportation, just 2 miles east of Interstate 85. Located in the city of Lawrenceville, our property is just 30 minutes outside of Atlanta, 45 minutes outside of Athens, and in the booming Northeast Atlanta industrial sector. To continue, the linking potential with our property with this area provides our property a prime opportunity to serve as a leading role in moving business in the northeast direction towards Athens and further north into the Carolinas.
Hello, my name is Marshall Hodges, and I will discuss our property in a larger detail. Here you can see our site is located right by Highway 316 off of Interstate 85, connecting our site to the heart of Atlanta with ease. The Northeast submarket featured the highest construction activity and current new absorption in Q4. It also contains the highest total inventory and the second highest net absorption year to date. Additionally, a new 200 square foot Amazon warehouse facility will soon be opened only 6 miles away from our proposed site location, further showing the potential of this area. Now I'll pass it back to Wyatt, who will discuss the property further.
Thanks, Marshall. So our property is an infill location that is easily and readily redevelopable, located in close proximity to multiple major different industrial highways and developments, most notably the Rowan Foundation's multi-generational Progress Park investment in Gwinnett County. To continue, this property was the largest that we saw in our research, totaling 285 acres of land with 740,000 square feet of existing office buildings on the property. This allowed our group to follow our plans of maximizing the adaptability of our industrial buildings while appealing to as many tenants as possible. Lastly, and most importantly in terms of potential, our property is majority zoned for M1 light industrial and M2 heavy industrial, which is exactly what our group needed to pursue our redevelopment plans. So after reviewing a variety of options for redeveloping on our property, our group's final recommendation is a 3-phased, 285-acre logistics park comprising of 9 industrial buildings totaling 2.7 million square feet. Our decision for 9 separate buildings allows us to maximize the use of total land acreage on the site while still creating noticeably large areas for trailer and truck parking. The first step in our plan is to clear the property of trees in order to maximize space for development and begin our conversion from office to industrial. We then plan to begin phase 1 of construction of 4 Class A industrial buildings totaling 1.4 million square feet in the northeast section of our property. Then, phase 2 will commence with demolition of the current office buildings and construction of 3 more industrial buildings totaling 1 million square feet in the southern and central sections of our property. Lastly, phase 3 will commence with construction of 2 more buildings totaling 300,000 square feet in the western section of our property. Our group estimates that this 3-phase development will have a construction timeline of roughly 20 months. And each of these industrial buildings ranges from 130 to 700,000 square feet in size, with varying building depths and truck court depths in proportion to their sizes. Lastly, 7 of our 9 buildings are of the rear load industrial building type. However, buildings A and E are cross docks. And here you can see a summary of a variety of different industrial projects under construction today in the Northeast Atlanta area submarket, most notably our project being located where the Star is, being the only one in the 25-mile radius to the center of Metro Atlanta. I'll now pass it back to Marshall for tenants.
Thank you, Wyatt. Logistics and parcel delivery was the most active industry in the Southeast, partly due to the proximity of the port located in Savannah. Next, we have e-commerce and traditional retail, where mass merchandisers control the majority of the demand. Other large sectors include the food and beverage industry, as well as the construction, machinery, and materials sector. After speaking to a number of industrial brokers in the area, they are currently tracking approximately 71 prospects in the Atlanta market, with total space needs ranging from 26.9 million square feet to 33.5 million square feet. Now I'll discuss our community synergies. So to the north of our property is the Gwinnett Technical College, and to the south are the Gwinnett School of Mathematics, Science, and Technology, and the Maxwell High School of Technology. While the presence of these schools here may sound concerning to some, these 3 STEM-focused institutions all have educational programs with a practical component. Thus, in a tight job market at 3.5% unemployment, corporate tenants and students from these adjacent schools can both benefit from potential job opportunities. I will now pass it off to Juan to discuss financials.
Thank you, Marshall, and good morning, everybody. My name is Juan Telles, and I'm going to talk about the financial implications of the project. First of all, Karen, you asked us to give you a recommendation for your investment in this market. And as an office developer, you are completely exposed to the uncertain office market that we're experiencing right now, and at the same time, lackluster right now in terms of performance and probably for the foreseeable future. So our recommendation is that you diversify your available $50 million in equity capital, 18% or $11 million into industrial because it's so hot. Now, it will be ridiculous for you to go completely from being office developer to industrial. That's why this approach will give you just a foot in the door to take advantage of this wonderful opportunity while using your expertise and recognizing those office opportunities that are still out there. We know that you have done this in the past, and that we know that you can still find them. In case the market forces changes, you also have the flexibility to go back and forth between industrial and office, or even expanding into other areas if you have experience. In terms of the cost for the project, the purchase of the land will be estimated at $57.45 million and represents $200,000 per acre, and the total development cost will be $277 million. You can see the project budget in the slide here. In terms of how to get to this cost, we are recommending that you use $11 million of your equity capital. We recommend that you look for an equity partner for around $100 million. And lastly, that you get $166 million in debt. This will give you a 60 to 40 debt to equity ratio. And from the equity perspective, you will represent 10% as a general partner and 90% for the limited partner of the total equity. Now, in this slide, you can see a number of key metrics for income and expected return. But Karen, the bottom line here is that your $11 million will turn into $32.5 million at the end of this 40-month project, which represents an IRR of 51.1%. Having said that, we're going to go to the conclusion. Because uncertainty of office... Because of the certificate office market due to the pandemic and the future of office work, because industrial is so hard right now, we're recommending that you diversify your portfolio away from office and into industrial with about $11 million, and to redevelop the former Cisco office headquarters into a 9-building industrial park, where your investment will go from $11 million to $32.5 million between 40 months, representing an IRR of 51.1%. And I'm happy to open it for questions for anybody.
Okay. Perfect. Good job.
How did you consider any topographical or wetlands constraints as you kind of worked through the physical layout of the project?
Yes, so we looked and there's 2 ponds actually on the current property, so we planned constructing our 9 industrial buildings around those, and there's also a few wetlands that stream through the property, which, if you go back to our, so there's 2 ponds that we constructed around and wetlands that we kept in mind to make sure we stayed away from, as well as we use those ponds to kind of serve as buffers between our industrial and residential, because we knew developing industrial close to residential could provide sound problems if it was too close.
I like the overall concept, and particularly with the trade uses that are around there, the schools that you mentioned in the report. I thought that was good. But I didn't see a whole lot of comp data as it related to your land comps for what you're buying the land for. It's about $22 a land or an FAR, and about $103 total all-in costs. How does that compare to what other things have been developed for?
We use comparables of industrials, and we use an average of per feet, let's say for the purchase, for the rental assumptions, and so on. The other thing with this specific property is the flexibility of it. As you can see from the size, there is a number of options that we thought about, and flexibility is the main word for this property. When we went to the area, we saw, as you mentioned, schools, but also residential, we saw commercial, we saw retail, restaurants. So we know that the comparables that we used were specifically for industrial, but should the situation change, should coronavirus come back, should the war in Russia increase construction costs for certain parts of industrial, should inflation go, we're at 8.7 right now, and so on, should there be no labor to make all these, let's say, structures, then we can completely change plans if Karen decides to do so by, for example, one of our ideas was to go into residential on this side. We could do commercial on the side by the highways, etc. So really we're just looking at other developments, knowing that ours is the closest one within the 25-mile radius to Atlanta area. So these are very conservative estimates in terms of the rates that we use and the assumptions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. No further questions.
Great. Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Great job. Great job.
Could you bring the microphones over here, please? Thank you. Good job.
All righty. Emery? Hopefully it was no other industrial developers in the room. Good job, Tyler.
You don't have the clicker.
There you go. There you go. And here's your clicker. You ready? Everybody? All right, you can start.
Good morning and thank you. We are the Blueberry Real Estate Partners representing the Goizueta Business School. We're pleased to present to you this mixed-use redevelopment opportunity and look forward to hearing your feedback. My name is Herman Engelman. I'm joined by my peers, Stephanie, John, Mike, Zach, and Everett. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. Okay, so today's agenda, I'll dive into the executive summary. We'll go into the market, the future of office, comps, financial analysis, and then we'll conclude. So we are seeking feedback on the mixed-use redevelopment of 1 and 2 Peachtree Point, which will be a mixed-use development consisting of a 200,000 square foot Class A office, 220 keys of luxury hotel rooms, and an upscale retail outlets to include a Equinox gym. The projected deal IRR is 22.94, the equity multiple 2.08, and our exit cap rate 6.91. The Ansley is a rectangular 2-acre site with unobstructed southern-facing views of all of Midtown. It sits on Peachtree Road, which sees 28,000 vehicles per day. Additionally, it has close access to I-85. It is nearby to Ansley Park, Equifax, and SCAD. I will now pass it off to John.
Thanks, Erm. Our thesis is to reposition a distressed office building whose lead tenant, Invesco, will be leaving in the near term and move it into a transformative mixed-use, wellness-driven development. We believe that the new development will create an attractive office environment that will embody the experiential, curated experience that office tenants demand today. Let's now talk about each component of the development and how it will create value for our investors. Starting with the hotel, we will take 2 Peachtree Point and transform it into a luxury hotel. First off, let's take a step back and look at the luxury hotel market in Midtown today. The Midtown market is comprised of some of the highest incomes in all of Atlanta and includes Ansley Park, the second most affluent neighborhood in the entire city. Additionally, Midtown, as you all know, is comprised of high-tech, high-paying jobs that will only accelerate in both the near to long term. Today, only 3 luxury or upscale hotels exist in the marketplace, creating a supply and demand imbalance that we look to take advantage of. The 220 key hotel will deliver an above-average ADR, RevPAR, and occupancy that will capture both the transient and business demand in the Midtown marketplace. In addition, we've been approved by Hyatt Hotels to create a Park Hyatt that will also serve as a premium operator of the existing space as well. Interestingly enough, while not included in our capital stack, we also are negotiating a key money amendment that will further de-risk the investment. Some unique amenities of the hotel will include the following: 25,000 square feet of contemporary meeting space, room service and catering abilities available to both the hotel guest as well as the office tenant next door, the ability for office tenants to deliver a master account process taking advantage of all the hotel amenities, multiple curated wellness-driven R&B outlets, and 500 square foot guest rooms, which will be the largest in the entire Midtown competitive set. If we now move to the retail component, we're looking to transform the Peachtree-facing retail stack into an Equinox gym. If we look again to today's consumer, they're focused on a wellness-driven lifestyle and environment. And we believe that Equinox, an industry leader in this space, will present an opportunity to capture this type of demand. In addition, this amenity will serve as a benefit to the office tenant, as we'll be subsidizing discounted memberships to all the tenants inside the existing office building. Now let's move to the office building. 1 Peachtree Point will be transformed into amazing luxury designed office building, capturing the design elements of the adjacent luxury hotel. The existing parking structure would deliver a best-in-class parking ratio, as the hotel demand will be less than the current office building demands today. As ease of access is important to today's office tenant, we will offer an electric shuttle to all office tenants to both the Midtown MARTA stations, as well as key strategic points such as Colony Square within a 3-mile radius. And based upon all these characteristics and many others, we will end up delivering a $45 per square foot rent, and we'll share some of this analysis further in our presentation. Our leasing strategy will actually mimic One Buckhead Plaza, one of the leading office towers in Buckhead today. To do this, we'll capture 1,000 to 2,000 square foot leases that will serve the family offices of the neighboring Ansley Park neighborhood, similar to how One Buckhead Plaza captures similar demand in Buckhead today. Now let's go just a click deeper into the benefits of both the office and the hotel. The hotel will complement the wellness theme of the overall development and offer fitness-driven amenities in each guest room. This space will have immersive views of both Ansley Park and neighboring Piedmont Park, and will offer a business center with best-in-class video conference capabilities available to both the office and hotel guests. One Peachtree Point, we will convert the existing flat rooftop deck into a revenue-generating space that will be converted into a rooftop bar and lounge. This Halo asset will be operated by an industry leader, the Gerber Group, of which we've already negotiated a lease. And the ground floor retail will be amenitized into a European coffee bar to deliver a high-end bespoke experience. So this all sounds great, but how does this happen? While we believe that the above investment creates meaningful value, as it demonstrates an opportunistic risk-adjusted IRR, it's important to start with how we're going to acquire this asset. Blueberry Real Estate Partners has a strong relationship with the current owner's lender, who is forcing an off-market transaction, as the current lender has failed certain loan covenants. As One Peachtree Point has lost Invesco and is now 94% vacant, we were actually able to acquire the building at a 50% discount due to the off-market transaction and the strong relationship we have with the current lender. In summary, our investment delivers a phenomenal IRR that captures both the favorable market conditions of Midtown as well as the unique programming characteristics of our proposed redevelopment. In any development scenario, we are more conscious of the potential risks than the upside, and therefore would like to highlight the following plan. As you well know, construction costs are going up 150 basis points a month currently, and therefore we'll execute a GMP that carries a very generous contingency. Due to the complexity of the mixed-use environment, each asset class will be individually capitalized with a life co that will allow us an easier exit upon sale. The site is actually currently zoned for the proposed uses, therefore minimizing the risk of this proposed to the investment. And lastly, we brought in a best-in-class team, as you can see on the screen, to help us execute this vision. In summary, we are shrinking the existing office development and therefore allowing us to capture above-market rents and deliver a phenomenal experience to the office tenant. I'll now pass it to Everett, who will continue.
Good morning. I'm Everett Nadal. Quickly, I'm just going to give a little overview of the current state of Midtown, as I'm sure y'all are all very familiar with it. Right now, it's the hottest submarket in all of Atlanta, boasting the highest rents in the nation, or in the metro. You can see in the bottom right that it's landed 6 of kind of the largest of the 12 largest office deals as of late. Norfolk Southern and Anthem. So that's why we ended up wanting to invest in the submarket. Atlanta's primed for population growth. And Midtown also serves not only as kind of the tech hub for Atlanta and the economic engine for Atlanta, but it's also the cultural center as of late. And in addition to all the other stuff that Midtown has going on, it's centrally located along with our property. It's easy in and out, which will help facilitate people getting to the office and make it as pain-free as possible. And the access to highly educated workforce and all the innovation that's occurring there is primed for opportunities. Lastly, just want to touch on the absorption. It's been relatively finicky, so we're not trying to take down a massive new white whale type of situation. We're trying to capitalize on the smaller tenants because we cannot compete with these brand new developments that are coming online. There's been 5 million square feet of new space delivered in counting since 2018, and a number of those have been spec but have landed these Googles and Microsofts of the world.
COVID-19 changed the office market nationally, impacting office rent velocity and vacancy rates. Perceptions of the future of the office market and of the economy varied widely. Despite the prevalence of working from home throughout the pandemic, studies have shown remote work is not good for mental or physical health and reduces office capacity and business productivity. Remote work has provided employees and employers flexibility, convenience, and comfort in the past few years. As we transition out of the pandemic, a dynamic and holistic, wellness-centered work experience is what we believe will invite people back to the office. As Sam Zell recently pointed out at the Emory Real Estate Conference, the Great Resignation is bullshit. With more flexibility than ever before, the creation of an engaging environment is an essential differentiator. I hand it over to Zach.
When Invesco vacates, the acquisition will be about 64% vacant on a blended basis. Here we have some high vacancy purchase comps from around the city. They have a similar vacancy and similar vintage. I'd like to point out the average price per square foot of 164 versus the 202 that we've underwritten. Here are Class A office buildings that we will be competing against once we've stabilized. We've conservatively underwritten a 10% vacancy that will be in line with our submarket. We feel comfortable about our exit at $395 per square foot as compared to the average of $432. Here are some lease comps from nearby buildings in Midtown. The average of $42 per square foot supports our post-COVID, post-renovation rate of $45 per square foot.
We're conservatively leveraging the office and retail development at 65% loan to cost at closing, with 100% good news funding on approximately $11.4 million of TILCs. As we discussed, the $45 office rental rate, we hold that flat throughout the 5-year analysis period, as we believe there's some substantial headwinds in the space. The Equinox lease we actually bring in tow at closing, and so we commence construction on their $100 square foot build out at closing. Additionally, we have some optionality on execution with the office lease-up strategy. So we have a full floor suite that we plan to hold for a full floor tenant, but then we have smaller suites that we're going to start spec suites immediately, as the broker feedback we've received in the market is that those, given the uncertainty both on the demand side and the user side, we think that those will accelerate our leasing and let us get an outsized share of net absorption in the coming years. The hotel closes at a 50% loan to cost on the vacant building and then funds up to 65% loan to cost through the renovation process. We will complete the hotel renovation 18 months after closing, and then ultimately we sell the property 61 months after closing, which allows us to get to the two large full floor suites with 360i and mark those suites to market. Once that value inflection point has been reached, we think that's the highest point to sell. Our yield on cost is untrended yield on cost is 9.9, and with a blended sales cap of approximately 7%, that leaves a 300 basis point spread, which we think is comfortable given the uncertainty of a renovation project of this scope. There's meat on the bone in case we have cost overruns, which we're seeing in a lot of construction projects these days. In total, we get a 23% levered IRR on the total deal. We anticipate a conservative JV structure on the office with a slightly more entrepreneurial promote on the hotel, commensurate with the development returns we're achieving. Ultimately, the opportunity here is to achieve development-like returns while limiting your exposure to ground-up construction risks in a rising cost environment. We believe that by reducing our exposure to office demand fluctuations, we can provide a highly amenitized space that will outcompete or be competitive with the new product that's going to dominate the Midtown market in the coming years. Ultimately, real estate's an illiquid asset class with a tremendous amount of risk, and only experienced investors should consider, but we're open to your feedback.
Love the name of the project.
Do you know where we got it from? I'm just kidding.
The residual value of your project.
They're brown-nosing you.
They didn't know I was a judge, for the record. The residual value of your project is largely driven by the hotel. It's $672K a door. What comps did you look at that supported that in the Atlanta hotel sales market?
We're going to let our resident hotel expert speak to that.
I think that's my cue. Yeah, that's a great question. On the residual hotel side, we really looked at comps over the past 24 months that were, we believed, alike and also in urban destinations. You can see some of these in front of you. And we've underwritten this conservatively based upon a similar like comp set.
I had a question as it related to the hotel as well. If you look at the total square footage per key, it's about 1,300 square feet. Seems kind of big for a hotel. Did you look at, and two, just the floor plate of the office building, making that into a hotel? Did you look at a layout to see how that all lays out and how functional that is?
We did. We also looked at similar adaptive reuse projects, such as one currently in Dallas with Uptown Place, converting into a hotel to mimic a similar layout structure that luxury hotels are seeing today.
So I'm sorry, could you guys remind us what is the average room size at the hotel?
About 500 square foot per room. That brings it to about 100,000 square feet for guest rooms across the 300,000 square foot building in total.
How did you get Park Hyatt comfortable with some of the new supply in Midtown, including the new Kimpton?
Yeah, great question. We still view the Midtown market today undersupplied based upon current market demand, not including future demand. If you look at really the high household income in Midtown, inclusive of Ansley Park, as well as the incoming tech jobs in Midtown, we view it with really only 3 luxury or even upscale hotels in Midtown as a great opportunity today, let alone in the future with new tech companies coming from the West Coast. And that really has been proven out if you were to look at kind of the comp set average for these hotels and what they're driving in rate and occupancy today. There's opportunity to absorb this within a smaller footprint than really comparable hotels such as the Intercon here or the Lowe's in Midtown.
And the Equinox is not existing. That would be a new tenant, correct?
Correct. That's the retail kind of parcel or piece of it on the outside on facing Peachtree. So we're taking that existing 2-story building and converting into the Equinox, but also giving Equinox great kind of front-facing signage on Peachtree as well.
And what other locations do they have in Atlanta, if any?
None.
Okay.
This would be their entry to the market.
That's right. They're in most major cities today, ironically not Atlanta, and they view this as a great opportunity to join a mixed-use development focusing on their target consumer.
What were you assuming for your operating expenses for the office component?
$12 a foot, and we're leasing on a gross basis.
And does that include the cost of the shuttle for?
The shuttle costs, we want to include a sort of bill-back structure in a lease negotiation. If a tenant doesn't want it, we're not going to make them pay for it.
I would also just add the cost of the shuttle would be synergized across the hotel as well, so there's some assumptions cross asset class.
Great. No further questions?
Great job.
Great job.
Thank you very much. Thank you all.
All right. Welcome back, everyone. You guys excited? I know I am. Thank you to all the teams. That was awesome, very engaging. The amount of questions that came from the judges were just extremely methodical. So we appreciate them. We appreciate each school for all your hard work. We realize how tough it is to be in school. Some of you also working, right? And then to do this, right? So it's extremely tough. So we appreciate that. We are pleased to have a stellar panel with us today. So I'd like to, Katie Getzman, who was going to be the moderator. Unfortunately, she cannot make it with us today. But we got our all-star team here stepping right on in. So I would like to introduce Matt Connors with Eastdale Secured. If you do not know Matt, just Google him and look at his 2012 Georgia Tech interview. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I had my fingers crossed. And then also Caroline Fisher, Vice President with the Lincoln Property Companies. All of the cool office spots around Atlanta, she's leasing them. And so I'll pass it on to them to take it on.
Thank you guys again. Can everyone hear me okay? Thank you all so much for joining us today, and I'll second Greg. Great job, students. That was I think all of you presented very well and brought great ideas to the table. I'll kind of start, as Greg said, I'm Caroline Fisher. This is Matt Connors. So we'll kick off into the questions. Maybe we'll start with intros if you'll just want to go down the line and share who you are.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Congratulations and great job on all the presentations. My name is Fane Hicks with SJC Ventures. I may be escorted off the premises, but we're probably more retail-oriented than anyone here, and you have a mixed-use project in West Midtown that we're in the process of completing called the Interlock.
Good morning, Aileen Almasi with Cushman & Wakefield. I represent office landlords throughout the city, and great job. Love the school challenge and happy to see it back.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I'm Bill Hollett with Cousins Properties. My expertise and specialty is office leasing of our properties, of which has been the most part of my career. I too am thrilled to see the NAIOP School Challenge back, and great job, everyone. Great to see everyone's faces this morning.
Hi, I'm Scott DeMeyer. I'm with CIM Group, real estate broker, and now kind of on the ownership side. CIM Group's based out of Los Angeles. We're an owner, operator, lender, developer, and our main focus on Centennial Yards, the former Gulch in downtown Atlanta.
Great, thank you guys. I'll kick us off and we could just jump right in. So I'll direct this question to everyone, so anyone feel free to jump in. But in your experience, how has the pandemic affected the office sector from a leasing perspective? And to second that, have you seen differences between more traditional commodity product types and creative or newer product?
I mean, I'll jump in. Obviously, when the pandemic hit, just like everyone was stunned and didn't know what was going on, so most decisions were stalled, if not, just put on hold for a period of time. And then kind of as we processed through, as much as you could give people shorter term extensions or flexibility for them to kind of understand where the future was going. For the most part, I feel like we're through that, and for the companies that are focused on having an office and recognizing the war for talent, they're all focused on the mixed-use environment, no matter what submarket they're in, and the real differentiated project. So I wouldn't say it's a certain type of sector. It's all the companies that are looking to hire the best and the brightest.
Yeah, we heard a lot in the presentations, and I think I hear it on a day-to-day basis, just on the flight to quality. So maybe if some of you want to touch on what that means to you and where you've seen this, Aileen, you were just saying on the mixed-use piece. How has this trend been accelerated since COVID began?
I think speaking from our experience, it's forced a lot of firms to think more concretely and specifically about what their objectives are, even within this thing that we've all, kind of known and experienced as a driver of office decision-making, which is the talent, connectivity, and recruiting. Is that focused on a specific, sector? Is that technology-oriented? The people that we're trying to recruit, what's important to them? So it's, it's a broad thing, but not necessarily a one-size-fits-all. And then, I think there's also the other end of the barbell, which is, there are value-oriented office users still, and that's kind of remained a viable component of office. But I think it's kind of, it's certainly made people rethink and gain a lot of clarity on what their office needs are, and that's driven decision-making.
Bill, how about you on Buckhead Plazas, if you want to maybe touch on that and what you guys have done there?
Yeah, in many ways, some things didn't change. They stalled for easily 9 months, if not a whole year.
There's a dark period.
It was a very dark period, and it was very different. And I, being the senior citizen on this panel, have been through many of these stalls, many more of these stalls than others. But so it was a very worrisome time. But projects like our Buckhead Plaza and 3350 Peachtree, we were planning to do ahead of COVID anyhow. I would say Fane made the point about the value office users, and to me, that is one of the biggest changes that has come out of COVID and the true flight to quality. You always had that dynamic, but there were always options where people could fall back on lower class A, B, and C. I think now employers are very, very worried about making that selection to go to B and C. And that's the main difference. They're reaching out to their brokers, they're reaching out to their landlords, trying to figure out how can that office property be enhanced, be upgraded to help lure their employees back. And so to me, the definition of flight to quality has changed in that regard. It doesn't always mean that the building has to have 6 restaurants. But if the building has 1 restaurant but 6 right next door, has hotels next door, has outdoor areas, that is the flight to quality means so much more than it did before, which was a lot of really nice finishes in the lobby and a landlord that was very stable and responsive.
Yeah, I would agree for sure. I mean, I think your point on getting employees to places that they like to be in, and really that on top of getting them out of their homes, right? I mean, we're trying to compete with homes and comfort and relaxation at home, and we're also in a very tough market. I remember back in the days when you look at office buildings and you're like, why aren't they enjoyable? Like, why do they have to be stuck? Why do you have to wear a tie? Why is that the case? But it took things like what we've gone through in this pandemic to kind of, I guess, speed that up. And I will add too, things change, right? Change is inevitable. We continue to kind of see this evolve and things change, and people need to be in front of that and continue to think outside the box. That's what I love seeing some of these younger students, coming up with these really great ideas for ways that we're going to work in the future. So it's fun to see, and it's fun to be a part of.
Yeah, I would echo on the flight to quality. It's not just a new building. It's a building that people want to be in, that's an 18-hour-a-day activity, a vibe. It's not just a brand new glass building with, good curtain wall.
And Elaine, earlier you touched on some of the trends and some of the shorter lease terms and things like that you might be seeing out there. But when do you think we start to get to a point that we get to more normalcy? Are we seeing enough building populations come back that you're starting to get a secure sense of what that kind of project is going to look like and live like moving forward?
I mean, I think you're still seeing a lot of flexibility requested and required by the occupants. So if it's through their right of first, their ability to grow, their ability to shrink, their ability to utilize the parking has been a real challenge. I know Bill and I have talked about this many times. Just, you know, the float and how the landlord used to kind of control the parking, the gig's a bit up on that. You know, they're utilizing, you're being requested to provide 600 parking cards for 300 parking spaces and allow the tenant to manage it. So the parking is certainly a challenge. You know, you're seeing people maybe put, you know, through the work from home situation, there's going to be a flight to quality because they are able to downsize the square footage of their office space and maybe upgrade the level of, you know, office that they're able to lease. So in those situations, I think that's a big, you know, a big factor.
But tenants have always wanted those termination options.
Oh, yeah.
It's not like,
Yes, they have.
It's not like it's the flexibility now is new. You know, they've always wanted lots of TI, lower rates, termination options, contraction. You know, so that's kind of been.
But the grow and shrink on both sides, you know, seems to be more requested now than ever.
One thing I've seen kind of in the most recent weeks as groups are starting to roll, and I think just kind of the uncertainty of what to expect going forward and what their footprint should look like, it's been interesting to see kind of companies navigate how do we evaluate this on a longer term basis. We have certainly seen a trend of just short-term extensions time and time again, but I think as people start to go longer, 3 years, it's kind of trying to evaluate, or I've seen a lot rather of groups trying to figure out what that looks like much more than we have been.
There's definitely a better confidence now to make those longer term decisions. And look, part of those may be driven by the fact that that it costs so much to build out a space now. You have two ends of the spectrum. You have a lot of spec suites, a lot of ready-to-go suites that are in very good shape. And I'll come back to that. The loan leasing that we saw during the 9 months of COVID heck. But I think that's a real good sign. The confidence level is there to make those commitments. But then the second thing is you've got this dynamic, and you pick up any piece about the return to work, and every piece says you got to make your office environment nicer than your home to get people out of their home. And we all know what that means. That might mean a lot of different things, but it's a very interesting dynamic, and I don't know whether that means all of our buildings are going to end up looking like the nice St. Regis or the cool W Hotel. Remember that first W Hotel opened up next to our.
Can you wear a Lululemon in the office? to the
terraces up at Central Perimeter, and
That's
we
what
thought
gets
we were
them
in
back.
South Beach. But you know, we all know what that means, and your office building, if it's doing those things, it's going to attract new customers and a higher retention rate.
So Scott, you and the team are obviously in front of some really innovative projects downtown, and you know, curious to draw on some of your previous experience too. You know, working in a lot more of the creative and adaptive reuse type projects. How do you think that product type fares long term, where you know that can never be the St. Regis, like Bill was saying, but how does that appeal to tenants, you know, versus just being a high-rise tower?
You know, obviously, when we kind of got into some of that adaptive reuse, we didn't think it was that cool, right? I mean, we had some of these older projects that the startups were in. There were cheap rents, really. I mean, that was cheap. It became cool, and then all of a sudden, it kind of became to where most of these bigger tenants and larger tenants, it could be just consulting firms or public firms wanted to be in this kind of space too. So it was, it's been interesting to see kind of how those creative spaces have moved on and become popular. I think those the creative and adaptive reuse projects still gain a lot of popularity. If you look at ESG and you look at carbon, hey, let's adapt this building rather than maybe go ground up. And again, it's stories as well. We always talk about
So kind of just your in-town project, but just kind of post-pandemic, and Bill, maybe I'll direct this question to you. Have you seen office tenants favored more urban or suburban areas, or does it depend on the type of tenant? What are you seeing more?
Yeah, I mean, clearly Midtown is the fair-haired child of Atlanta. It's getting a lot of the headlines, but they're, you know, like a lot of cities around the country, the amount of space that's been leased up at Alpharetta in the Avalon area. Now, it's not just Avalon, but it's properties that are downtown Avalon that are close to the restaurants. Clearly, the Battery continues, that Battery area continues to get some very notable companies that are committing to that, and that's because of the let's skip the 24/7. I like your terminology, 18. The 18-hour. It fits all of the, or fulfills all of those requirements and activities and restaurants and hotels, et cetera, and easy to get in and out of. So it's you can pick up pieces that talk about the next wave of investment successes are in the suburbs, and then you have a lot of investors that are only chasing urban. So I don't think it's urban versus suburban. I think you're going to see success stories in both. The project that Aileen's working on in Central Perimeter fits the adaptive reuse, very techie feeling. Clearly that's having a lot of success. So
with F&B and hotel.
Yeah.
Have you seen physical occupancy, kind of what groups returned quicker between suburban and urban?
Oh, definitely urban is more return to work, I feel, in the projects that I'm working on. I feel like the suburban is, well, and then you'll also see like leadership maybe not being as specific as to what days of the week. And that's also causing a lot of challenges. So if you're not specific about when to come to work, it's a little bit of a challenge when you're in the office and nobody else is there. Like, what's the point?
So seeing how some of these, creative new developments, just like Interlock, Fane, and kind of West Midtown have caught on, you've been able to draw upon, a lot of West Midtown's kind of historic, almost design and furniture background, while also, landing some major tech users. How's that informing how you're looking at developments and design moving forward?
Yeah, it's it's been a really fun, exciting, interesting process to see kind of the vision, go from something in someone's head that seems super cool and creative to now you can experience it. And for us as predominantly retail-oriented thinkers, our lens has always been about connecting with the end user and the consumer and serving the clients and the customers of our retail tenants. And so a lot of that is about the activation of a project and the energy of a project. So that was applied to the whole thought process with Interlock. And probably one of the biggest attributes we get feedback on, is this idea that it seamlessly interacts with the neighborhood and the surrounding area, but more so the parking environment. We spend a lot of time thinking about the parking environment, and our parking structure is the same clear height as our finished office space, so 15-foot clear height. You can drive up to every level. There's no gating. Everything's Park Mobile, so app-based. And I think that's been a real differentiator for how people interact with their office space. If you kind of go back to the grocery anchored or the retail analogy, we think about and talk about the 40-something-year-old mother of two, which is the primary demographic or the target demographic for Whole Foods, for example. And so, we try to think about how do you eliminate every barrier, to the primary demographic accessing and experiencing the property. And so that was applied, to the Interlock project. We've gotten great feedback so far to see it in action. And then just the connectivity with the other uses. It's the tenants who kind of have that third place that's not home or not at their workstation. For example, it's the coffee shop or the hotel, event space, or the hotel even for out-of-town business travelers that are coming to see them. So it's kind of it's about the energy and the connectivity and making the experience something that's a little different, but all works together to create this great energy.
So Fane, is must-take parking still on the table for your office tenants, or is that becoming a real kind of, I don't know, tough, sensitive leasing term these days? It's a topic. It hasn't become sensitive. Someone mentioned the more younger, innovative, creative minds that we're getting the benefit of hearing from. We were touring the project recently, and one of the coolest comments from someone in their 20s when we're going through the parking structure and talking about that is, "Oh, so you guys must have contemplated this being future GLA."
Yeah.
And we're like, "That's brilliant." Not really, but everybody's thinking about a world where we're not arriving to work in our individual cars and vehicles. But parking's worked out really well.
So how do you think the Atlanta office market will perform in the next 12 to 24 months? We've talked a lot about the trends, but just where do you guys see us going forward? Obviously, a lot of the projects recommended to deploy the capital into other things, but just the office-specific world, where do you guys see that in the next 12 to 24 months?
Well, I'm probably the least qualified as an office expert, but we did see some similar trends in retail over the last 5 years with the advent of online and omni-channel retail kind of disrupting traditional bricks and mortar. And the big lesson learned there, which I think is applicable to office, is you can't just be something. You have to be something specific. You can't just be anything. So there were clear in retail, there are clear winners and losers at kind of both ends of the spectrum. There's a segment that's very willing to pay a premium for the best, most experiential, kind of luxury retail segment, and then we saw the unbelievable success of kind of necessity and convenience based retail like grocery, and then there's the messy middle, and I think office is going to have to figure out what will be the messy middle for a while, whether that's something that's just traditional and encumbered by leases and can't transform quickly enough, or it's some overbuilt suburban market. But I think there'll be pockets of great success, and Atlanta is one of the most exciting places to be in the world, in the history of the world, I think, right now. So there'll be a lot of cool stuff, but I think maybe the messy middle has to figure itself out a little bit.
I think we should count our lucky stars that we're in Atlanta, Georgia, and not in the Northeast or the Rust Belt. And we have some great educational institutions to thank for a wonderful population for a lot of firms to be picking and choosing to come to Atlanta, and a diverse education population as well. So I think that's been a lot of the highlights that we're seeing and the benefits of that. I would say, the messy middle will be different sectors trying to figure out what that looks like for them. There's a huge Anthem sublease on the market, and we were talking about this yesterday. It's like, so that's a beautiful Class A building in Midtown. Who were those people, and so were those people like really putting in claims, and that's the building that they were put in, and that's why the sublease. So really kind of digging through the type of users and where they're sitting is going to be interesting. Some law firms the legal sector is really struggling, I think more than any other sector that I've been engaged with, to get their people back and how to engage when their bottom line is improving with shrinking office space, and they have beautiful at-home offices. So that's going to be a struggle, but they need people to get back to it, engage with their young attorneys and kind of transfer some of those relationships and their expertise. So the messy middle will be interesting for a lot of sectors.
And talk about a job group that needs to be in the office, in my opinion. Law groups. Bill, what about you?
Well, I think on the law firms, they've figured out that for their headcount, they can probably have a lot of their back office and support working from home. It worked. They were a group that was very worried about that going into the pandemic, and they figured out that with good servers and things like that, they could their paralegals could do the work from home. I'd say in our buildings, we tended to, with some of even the biggest law firms, we tended to see a lot of the more senior partners in the office during COVID. But we remain very, very excited for Atlanta for all the reasons that were previously stated. I just thinking about the things that are mostly uncontrollable. I'm hoping that community-wide we don't go backwards with any sort of security events, and sure feels like we've got a lot of momentum with really good leadership at the highest political levels. So that's fantastic, and again, hopefully we don't take some steps backwards in that regard. I think we're going to continue to see the buildings that are doing renovations succeed, the buildings that are under construction and or have recently delivered be huge success stories, particularly those that are either mixed-use developments or are in a great core of amenity areas. It is going to be very interesting, I think, to see what the dynamics of the interest rate environment are and how capital transactions are affected. Do new buildings, just due to the inflationary costs, do those continue to come out of the ground at the pace that we have? I don't know. I hope so. Certainly the corporate office market and creative market seems to still be willing to pay for those, so that's a great sign for our city. But it will be interesting to see how that plays out over the next 12 to 24 months.
Yeah,
Scott.
kind of to agree with what I heard was working on Centennial Yards. I'm spending a lot of my time out of town, and I will say from the supply, obviously we're talking a lot about supply. On the demand side, Atlanta looks great. I mean, the brokers and the users I'm talking to all are looking at Atlanta as a place to expand if they're not here. Expand their business, and again, it's because of the talent and the business environment, diversity, all those things that we know. So again, I agree, being in Atlanta is great right now. So I just continue to see us continuing our pace. You know, we're certainly one of those cities that never jumps really, really quickly or drops. We just kind of are consistent, which I love to see. And again, I think we all come together. I think we got great leadership too. So I see good things for us for sure.
Curious if you guys have seen, we've obviously had a lot of new to market announcements in the last couple of years, which has been great, and I think will be great for the overall Atlanta market. Have you seen yet kind of companies coming with those groups? Obviously, Google's kind of phasing into 1105, and I think we're hopeful, at least I am in my seat on the office leasing side, of just seeing more companies even in migration more than what we've heard as bigger companies in the news.
More.
Yeah, more are coming, and not just the biggest names, but more. We did a lease with a company called Snowflake that I'd never heard of and then they became the largest IPO in 2020. They leased 9,000 feet right before the pandemic. They finished the space, one person office there, and before they even moved everybody in, they ended up moving to a full floor. So there's a lot of those stories in Atlanta, and that's a tech firm that's West Coast based. We're going to continue to see those.
Yeah, we have we have a partnership at the Interlock with Georgia Tech, and they have a post-incubator space called Encore, and it's really meant for a specific profile of startup companies, kind of post-incubator with a certain amount of funding and a certain number of employees, and kind of a 3 to 5 year business plan. And so just from some activity from that and other tenants who are new to market who we've had exposure to, it will make you really excited about the prospects for Atlanta and, you know, kind of the interest level in firms locating here for all the reasons that we've talked about and all the exciting things going on in Atlanta.
Yeah, from a state economic development side, I've been talking to them about a few projects, and they said their usual pipeline is about 12, and that's healthy and great, and they have about over 40 projects they're working on right now. So that should make everyone feel good.
Any estimate at number of jobs that would equate to, or office square footage?
Yeah, they won't really disclose that, and many of them could be industrial, certainly, but probably all positive for us.
Although I did see you guys probably saw the headline in the Business Chronicle this morning that we have a gap in unicorns.
I did see
So
2 years.
somebody's going to have to step up.
Lack of unicorns.
We'll have to have somebody to.
I'm betting that one of these students
Exactly.
is going to be
the next unicorn.
Yeah.
Shifting gears maybe back onto a more negative note, but just the overall sublease market we've seen kind of has been ever growing. I think as you kind of dig into those numbers of what it looks like, I think it's been interesting to see of who's kind of be nice to sublease, a must sublease. What are you guys seeing as the sublease market stands today?
I think the subleases that haven't been built out and come with capital and are flexible in term, those are interesting and need to be concerned as a competitor. Other than that, I don't really concern myself with subleases because unless they're in pristine shape, they're not really a competitor. And I think the cost of capital is so high right now, people aren't able to do subleases if they need to make alterations.
Is there a deep, do you mind if I ask a question?
No.
Is there like a deep value opportunity for, you know, a tenant? Are there, you know, sub-lessors that are so motivated that you can get some huge discount, or typically?
I'm not really experiencing that.
Yeah.
I'm not either.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
I
I mean, I would say
that
that Anthem sublease is the one that I would say is worth noting because it's in Midtown with TI that hasn't been used yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to your high capital point, just maybe on concessions on TI, and maybe all of you guys can speak just from the owner side. Yeah. What are you seeing? Obviously, on my end, I've seen it ever growing. The concession packages continue to go up. Are you seeing rental rates kind of level out and stay where they are?
Well, I think that's what's buoying rental rates. I mean, you're seeing growing rental rates because you're seeing growing TI packages and a huge focus on flexibility of use. So can I convert all the free rent to TI? Can I convert what isn't used back into free rent? Convertibility is huge. And then I mean, the TI, as much as you think, you know, everyone's like, how much is it going to cost to build out? You're like, I'm not going on record for that. Let's just wait till the pricing comes back.
Yeah, because it could change from a Monday to a Wednesday.
And as a landlord, you always hope that TI can be reused too, right?
Yeah.
You know, we're always, I think, more thinking about, if I invest this in the building and it's more than typical, can I reuse it if they move out or what have you? So there's just different ways we're trying to check and balance things.
Yeah, and I'd say that's also an interesting point. Lots of times we're getting pricing and they're like, this is only good for a week. I'm like, the lease isn't getting done in a week, right? Like, we need a little.
They don't have to know that.
Yeah, exactly.
Built out at all. you can find glass.
And that's why, you know, to Bill's point, the spec suites and having ready to go, that's been a huge focus to a lot of, and you're seeing people go with larger and larger spec suites because they don't have the time and they need the surety of delivery.
I think, and on the subleases, if it's in good shape,
yeah, it's gone.
It's going to move quickly.
Yeah, on the flexibility stuff, we've really kind of in the last few months, we've been more flexible just knowing that the costs are going to come in so high. So we're like, sure, you can convert it all to FF&E, moving costs and rent abatement, but you're going to go through every dollar of it.
Exactly.
Well, right now, landlords are getting paid for it. Their rents are doing well, and they're getting paid for it.
So we'll kind of end it with more of a fun question. If each of you were Mrs. Sunday from the case study, how would you decide to deploy the $50 million in equity? Thane, I'll start with you.
I'm partial to the infill mixed use project. I'll go with that.
I don't want to be a Karen. I don't know who named her. But yeah, I definitely have to be in town and a place that I'd want to spend my time. So.
You're going to Equinox.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna stay on the office side, and I'm gonna do probably half in town and half out in the burbs.
No industrial?
No. No, I've already missed that boat about 12 times in my career, so why jump into something good?
Scott, they were converting some of the office buildings downtown there. Does that, give you guys any pause with everything you have going on there?
That's interesting. With regards to, yes, we've converted and moved around different projects from office, hotel, retail, to residential in the back and all that. Yeah, again, it's interesting, and I think changes, again, things change and you have to be able to pivot. Regarding investment, I kind of agree. I think, sometimes you kind of think about the different nodes in these little towns, and you think of, again, Alpharetta or Smyrna or Decatur. I think I probably spread all of the 50 million throughout these small little areas, through these little towns, in some creative elements.
That's great.
Yeah, great to hear. And do you think you start to see that kind of creative or adaptive reuse trend start to trickle further and further out into the suburbs? Obviously the battery kind of has its own staying power right now, but outside of some of that and Avalon, when does this?
Yeah.
We've seen that for a while.
It's happening.
But it feels like you've seen, people, TPA being one of those that go into a submarket like Kennesaw and convert something creative. I don't think just urbanites like creative, cool space, right? I think everybody does. So, and also, there's a lot of really great bones that are out there that are looking for people to be in them. So, I think you're going to see that. You're going to continue to.
I remember we were studying West Midtown, and there was no credit tenants in West Midtown.
None.
8 years ago. Fitzgerald was the first credit tenant to move to West Midtown, and then with all the new announcements, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's not slowing down. That's great. Thank you guys so much all for your time. We have a couple more minutes, I think, before we make announcements on winners, if anyone wants to ask a question.
Yeah, I was going to ask Faye, just what are the retailers, are they betting on people coming back to the office, i.e., in these dense urban environments, because I'm sure a lot of their business relies on those people being back in the office, or are they saying, we're not confident on that, so we're going to go someplace closer to the residents themselves?
Yeah, great question. So it's really a mix. There's some destination retail tenants like Putt Shack, first in the U.S., and they're doing extremely well. They kind of are their own draw. There's kind of a range of traditional retailers, furniture, design oriented. They have their own draw. The food and beverage tenants are very much focused on interacting and being a part of the office usage. But what they found, because some of those food and beverage retail tenants have opened ahead of the office occupancy occurring, is that the neighborhood has been way more supportive than they even forecasted. So I think every single person that has a lease in West Midtown in an apartment must work from home, because the daytime foot traffic, and everyone's in just one step above pajamas, but they're all going to eat for lunch and for dinner. So it's been a real mix, and I think as the office market matures, you'll see maybe the complexion of types of retailers who are willing to be there will end up going there. And we've seen as you go south on Howell Mill, maybe some of the newer retail tenants who are opening up there have not had as much activity because some of the other office projects are not as open. But kind of at the main intersection, there's been a lot of really good traffic and good retail sales.
And you have a great mixed use there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
I think I saw another question over there in the back.
Bill, you want to?
I mean,
That's
not new news.
We're operating on a very low leverage level anyhow, so we're more focused on having our rollover spread out and not having kind of fundamentally, and you guys are all learning this in school, you try not to have more than 20% of your portfolio, or of your building, rolling in any particular year. Candidly, we want to find the next Amazon, so if there's a good story behind it and somebody wants to do a 2-year lease, we're going to try to figure that out.
You're probably going to get a bigger rent.
Yeah. Well, and the diversification on the size of the building, it's usually not all happening at once.
Right.
What?
Yeah, so I don't think you'd be surprised to hear that we don't think of it as less certain cash flow streams.
Good answer.
There are many lender kind of underwriting criteria that are out there. Our projects certainly can work on different leverage levels, and we've had this conversation at a variety of points over the last couple of years of what are we really doing, and we think of it as value creation, and so the market values value creation. If you look at West Side Provisions, just to stay in the West Midtown kind of example and framework, West Side Provisions with 0 credit tenants, probably 6 or 7 years ago, was recapped, I think at what then was the lowest cap rate valuation, in the Southeast, maybe outside of, kind of some of the coastal markets. And it was recapped with a very institutional, very institutional partner that's got very strict, underwriting criteria. And so if capital, and capital that I'm thinking about is ultimately the owner and the operator, which will not be us, values the value creation, then the model absolutely works. And it's really less about the capital stack for the development period, because there is many different ways to kind of structure that and look at it. But I appreciate your question, and I do think we're going to be entering into a little bit of a shifting environment, especially for some of the uses, as rates continue to go up and we face these inflationary, cost-related challenges if rents don't continue to keep pace with that.
One more question, if anyone has one. Molly?
Hi, thank you guys so much. This has been so informative. Kind of a crystal ball question. We're all obviously feeling the effects of inflation. Tenant rep side, as quickly as 30 to 60 days into inflation, we started seeing higher annual escalations in proposals due to inflation. Is that a trend that you guys have foresee happening more and more? Are there conversations
I mean, I think that's a conversation that's being had on both sides of the table all the time, and whose risk that really is. Obviously, the landlord has the operating expenses that they have, you know, and people structuring triple net versus full service gross, but really the escalations of interest, I mean, of that inflation is going to be borne on the tenant inevitably. I mean,
We're going to go back to CPI increase.
yeah, hopefully never.
That adds
I mean,
6 people to the accounting department.
Thank
I
you,
mean, would
guys.
you say?
No, I agree. It's just a deal point that's going to, nobody can ignore inflation right now. So I think it's a,
Yeah, I think that we've really benefited for so many years of being able to just kind of count on a low inflationary annual increase, but it's going to jump.
Well, before we hand it over to Debbie and Greg here, let's give a hand to our panelists real quick.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you. Good to listen today.
That was awesome. Really enjoyed that. Good Lord. Caroline and Matt, you guys are angels. You know, I mean, guys, you don't understand. I mean, they really stepped up today. They were not really prepared to sit up here, but I mean, this program doesn't happen without them.
We're brokers, we can BS anything.
Right. The program doesn't happen without them, so they knew the inner working. So appreciate you guys so much. Appreciate the panel. Really enjoy getting that feedback. And I have a vested interest in Interlock since I live around the corner. So, you know, looking forward to that Publix. All right. So I know everybody is sitting there tapping their feet. But first, I would like to call John Grimsley on up to help me announce the winner and present the check and trophy. But before we announce the winner, I'd like to once again thank our sponsors, Majestic Realty Company, Randall Paulson Architects and Tremel Crow Company, Altus Group, Bridge Investment Group, Dominium Development and Acquisitions, and again, a thank you to our resource branding and CoStar Group for your help with this year's event. We couldn't hold these events without your continued support. Also, for those that are here for continuing ed credits, please do not forget to sign the Georgia Real Estate Commission sheet when you leave here. All right. So, all students, please stay after the announcement, okay? Nobody run off and bust any doors open, okay? Please hang around. All right. Can I get a drum roll? All right. The 2022 NAIOP Georgia School Challenge winner is Georgia State University.